Okay, so welcome to the channel. And welcome back to the channel. My name is Komana and today we have some exciting guests. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, so over to you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here.
I'm Shane and I'm from China. And this is my wife. We have been married for almost 80 years.
Almost 80
Wow.
years. My name is Katie. I'm from the US. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. Okay, so I'll start with an icebreaker question. What's your favorite color?
Oh, my favorite color is blue.
Blue. And Shane?
You took my answer.
We have the same favorite color.
Wow. Couple
Yeah.
goals right here. Couple goals. Okay, so we're going to start with our first question. And the question is, how did you meet?
We meet in a church bus.
Church bus!
Yeah. So I had just moved to this city and I didn't have any friends. I didn't really know anyone, but I learned about the church here.
Yeah.
So I caught the bus to go to the church, and for maybe, I can't remember if it's the very first Sunday, but anyway, very early on, and when I had just arrived here, and then he got on the bus.
Wow.
And yeah, so I still remember the first time I saw him.
What was he wearing?
I don't remember exactly, but I remember thinking he was cute and that he was dressed well.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember thinking, because we have the same favorite color, so we like similar style, and so I remember seeing him and being like, oh, he's cute, but then I thought, oh, he looks so young. I shouldn't be looking at him.
Yeah.
He's younger than me. But then later, we became friends, and I found out oh, actually we're the same age.
No.
Yeah, but yeah, that was my first impression when we first met. So we were seeing each other every Sunday at church, and that's how we got to know each other.
Ladies and gentlemen, go to church. Go to church. You see, this is amazing. This is amazing. Shane, how did you feel when you first saw Katie?
Oh, she's cute.
No, you're stealing my answer.
Come on.
I think we exchanged WeChat as well.
Yeah.
We got each other's social media that first Sunday on the bus. Yeah.
So you are doing that on purpose. She said she's sitting near me on purpose. And I didn't know until we got married.
So you set him up.
So I was already on the bus when he got on, and I didn't see him in the service because we have a Chinese service and an English service, right? So, but going back home on the bus, he got on first. So then I was very conveniently seated nearby.
As usual.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, let me make some new friends, and so I got multiple people's WeChat, including his. Very conveniently. Very
conveniently.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
How convenient.
Yeah.
That's a lovely story. Aww. I feel like falling in love again with my husband. Okay, so how did you know that she was the one, and how did you know that he was the one?
I fall in love with her pretty soon, pretty quickly after.
Very quickly.
We start to hang out. Yeah. I found out that she's very pretty, and that she's very smart, and that she has strong face, and just all kind of nice personality that I like.
Aww. That's sweet.
Yeah. So for him, it was very easy and straightforward, and oh, I like you, we should get married kind of feeling. But for me, it was really stressful when we were dating, trying to figure out what is the right decision, what should we do, should we get married or not. Yeah, so we have very different experiences when we were dating and preparing for marriage. Yeah, so we had very different experiences when we were dating and preparing for marriage. So for me, I was coming from a divorce in my family that was very difficult and painful, and also a previous relationship that ended very terribly. And so I was very cautious and very concerned and very much wanting to make the right decision. I thought it would be better to remain single than to be in an unhealthy marriage or the wrong marriage. So I had a lot of concerns and worries like, is he the right one? I don't know. How do you know? And so I was quite anxious, and he was just like, let's get married.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, let's do it.
Yeah. So, and I think we also had the cultural difference of Chinese couples often get married quite quickly compared to American couples. So for me, I felt like, the relationship is moving quite quickly, you know, like we got engaged maybe 9 months after we started dating, but we were talking about marriage, of course, a few months before that. So for me, that felt quite quick. But for Chinese, like, that's not quick at all. If you're ready to get married, that's not fast at all. So there was also that dynamic going on. But at that time when we were thinking about and talking about whether we should get married, I remember we were praying and fasting for 1 month. And I was speaking to some wise people in my life that I really trusted, asking their advice, asking their opinions. And for me, I really had to do a lot of self-reflection about what was important to me, and kind of like how every person has strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yes.
And every person comes to a relationship with baggage. So you can't just hold out for somebody that doesn't have baggage, or someone that doesn't have weaknesses, that doesn't exist, right? So it really takes, you know, some reflection on yourself and that person to decide, okay, are these weaknesses I can accept, and is this baggage I can accept, and are the strengths that are important to me, that I need and that I want. And so during that time, it was a lot of me trying to decide, you know, those things, which those things are something each individual has to decide for themselves. So it wasn't more like problems necessarily with him or with the relationship. It was more like those weren't like the bigger issue. The bigger issue was me trying to figure out my priorities and evaluating
the pros and cons.
Yes, yeah. And because I think a lot of like dating advice is just like, oh, you should marry a Christian, you should marry a good person, things like that. But there's a lot more things besides that, like to think about and to consider. And so during that season, I eventually realized that what I needed, what was most important to me, was someone who was really dedicated to the health of the relationship and willing to work on the relationship and willing to face problems in the relationship, and not avoiding or not afraid of difficulties. And that took a lot of reflection on my part, looking at my parents' failed marriage and looking at my previous relationship to come to those conclusions. And Shane was showing those things to me and how we were dating. And so that's what really made me decide and realize, like, okay, I'm going to take a step of faith. I'm going to trust God and also trust this person, and not just back out because of being afraid of taking a risk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of self-introspection that I think many of us lack sometimes when making tough decisions.
Easy. It's
yes.
not easy.
So I give you a thumbs up for that. Okay, so how was the proposal?
How was the proposal?
So we had friends to help us, to help me actually.
Yeah.
Decorate the one coffee shop that we both like.
Oh.
Yeah, and they did a lot.
Wow.
We also already bought the rings before the proposal. Yeah,
Yeah, we had gone ring shopping together. Yeah, I think maybe we should also explain that like the proposing before marriage in this way is not, it's more recently in Chinese culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a lot of Chinese couples don't have a proposal in that way, but a proposal was really important to me, and so I kind of told him some things, and I also talked to our mutual friends who also helped him, because he had to like learn like, oh, what should he do for a proposal, and so we went ring shopping together, and that was like helpful for him to like know and understand like, oh, in my culture it's really important to have rings and to wear the rings, because some Chinese couples do rings now, but they don't wear them every day usually.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
Usually.
And sometimes they don't have them.
Yellow gold.
Yeah, and I didn't want yellow gold, I wanted white gold. So there's just like a lot of cultural things. So, but he did a really good job doing an American style proposal. But yeah, it was at the cafe that we liked. It was outdoors in the evening, and there were candles everywhere.
So you never expected it?
No, I expected it because I had to prepare him.
Yeah, I know, but when it happened,
I
did you
didn't
feel
know
like that day it was going to happen?
No. I didn't know what day. I didn't know what day. I knew he had a ring, and that we had like talked about marriage, obviously.
Yes.
But I did not know when or how it was going to happen. But I knew that there was probably something soon. So, but yeah, that day I was very surprised. He was just like, "Oh, you should get your nails done." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a good idea." So all the photos, I have very nice nails.
Yeah, that's
Which is
nice.
good.
That was cute. I hope
But
you're
yeah.
taking notes, ladies. Tell your friends what you want, and they'll tell him, like your mutual friends.
Yeah, a wingman or wingwoman to
Yeah,
help
I think
you
that's
out.
what I also did, because
Really?
yes, because he doesn't really believe in proposals and stuff, and even
What?
so I wanted one, and I don't like, public.
No,
Things.
not public, big public thing. No.
So I told someone what I would want, and she helped him
Yeah.
to do it. So it's important to be able to tell someone all of that, because we also picked the rings. I picked my ring.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, and then it came from his country.
Oh wow.
So it came by DHL, and I saw the ring, and I was just wondering, when is this guy going to propose?
So
The ring is here.
We're the same.
Yes. I'm
We're
like,
the
the ring
same.
is here. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he eventually proposed, and yeah, it was nice. I loved
Yeah.
it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Floji did the pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So our
so-
friends were here in Floji. It's another wonderful
Yeah.
intercultural couple.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, they were dating at the time. They weren't married yet, but yeah, they're the heroes of the proposal. Helping us out,
Thank you so much for all the help that we have.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next question is, what were your family's views or concerns about being with someone from another country or culture? And how did you convince them, if they needed convincing?
Okay, so my father was like, "Oh, good. Why not?" It's like, that's just
No problem.
problem.
Issue.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was like, "You think about it carefully. Like such long distance, and then you need to take the plane, like
travel more
travel
often,
more
yeah.
often, and then maybe you will stay there, and it's just difficult to see each other. Like, so she was just tell me to think more clearly, but she didn't try to stop me,
Oh.
and and let me do my own decision. Just
Yeah, I think
That's nice.
she came around quickly.
I don't need to convince her.
That's
I
nice.
say we don't have any drama about this question because my parents were just like, okay, no problem. But I think also like my parents are divorced, so it's like they can't really give me marriage advice, Like,
No, but they can.
they can give you don't do this, don't do that.
Yes.
But maybe that's also an American culture thing of
Mhm.
being very independent.
Mm.
And so like that's your personal decision as opposed to your parents you know, maybe in Chinese culture, I think the parents' opinion is more important.
Yeah, in my culture too, it's very important.
So for me, it's like culturally, their opinion is like maybe important to me because I care about them, but not gonna be like the main deciding factor. Yeah. So yeah, our parents were very chill.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that for you guys.
Yeah,
because people have so many different stories to this.
I know many other couples it's been
Yes.
very difficult, especially when they're from different cultures.
Exactly, and countries as well.
Yeah.
Because some people are from the same country but different cultures.
That's true.
So,
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't have any good juicy stories
That's fine.
about that.
This is juicy enough. You know, juicy doesn't have to be bad.
That's
It can
true.
also be good.
That's true.
Yeah. So our next question is, what was your experience getting married with different cultures in play?
Do you mean like the wedding or
Yes.
just in general the wedding?
The wedding
Okay.
and the getting married. You know, for example, I know that in Chinese culture they pay dowry, right? Did they do the dowry for you? Okay.
No. Yeah.
My friends are jurors.
Yeah. I was like, I don't need anything. I don't need a house. I don't need a car. I don't need. Yeah. So it was a benefit for him and his parents because they didn't have to do those things that maybe if he married a Chinese woman he might need to do. Right?
Are you sure you didn't want a house?
I mean, eventually we bought a house, but it was like, more than 5 years later, and we were ready for that and everything. Those things we didn't do the Chinese way. For the wedding, we had quite unique weddings because what I really wanted and what they agreed to do was I wanted an American wedding in China and a Chinese wedding in America.
Wow.
So I wanted to have to show our Chinese friends and family something from my culture, and I wanted to show my friends and family something from his culture.
Lovely.
And so that was like what I really wanted, and you were fine with it.
Fine.
And they're like, okay. Yeah, because I remember at the time being like, I don't know, like, can he accept it or can his parents accept it?
Yeah.
But I think also because we had the same faith, that helped, and it made it a lot easier because we had the wedding in China was the church wedding, and that's important to him and his family, and it was important to me and my family. So we were all in agreement about that. And we still had a dinner, but it was quite small compared to Chinese weddings.
Special.
Oh, that's true. It was buffet, which usually Chinese do not do buffets. But it was just a lot easier that way because we had people from so many countries at that wedding that it was a lot easier to have buffet and like not waste food. And there were also Western food options.
Wow.
So it was just easier that way.
It was nice and it's outdoor.
Yeah, the dinner was outdoor, which was also different from Chinese.
I wish I was there. You have to do another wedding for me.
One.
Yes.
Vow renewal.
10 years. Since this is your 8th year in marriage, so 2 more years.
Do you know what vow renewals are?
I don't
It's
know.
where you
It's
say your vows
another
again.
wedding.
No,
Like
no,
a
no.
mini wedding.
It's just a party to celebrate your anniversary.
Your 10 years, yeah.
Uh-huh.
We can if you like.
We
Not.
can have a party, but
Yeah, we can start planning it. It's only 2 years away.
Anyways, so we had like very cross-cultural weddings, and then in the U.S. we had a big Chinese dinner, and it was all in red for my friends and family. And I think we only had 2 Chinese people there, one of which was Shane because his parents couldn't make it for that wedding.
No.
Unfortunately, yeah. But yeah, so I'm very glad and thankful for those 2 weddings, but they were also very stressful. But
I can't imagine.
yeah, but I think that was also just like weddings can and very often are very stressful in general.
And you did 2.
And we did 2, and we had family and friends of mine traveling into the country for the first time for our wedding. and we had a lot of people involved with doing an American style wedding who had never even seen an American style wedding before. So like the photographer didn't get a lot of photos that he was supposed to get. For example, like our kiss in our wedding, the photo is like we're on the very edge, and then it's just the back of somebody in the audience, like it's their back and their rear end, and then we're kissing like over here. And just because the photographer, like we hired a Chinese photographer and he didn't know any English, but that was who we had. We had booked that company for our engagement photos, and they had done a good job, so we just hired them again for the wedding. But in hindsight, it was like, we should have just asked Floji. We should have just asked, someone who's familiar with that style of wedding. But it's just like things like that where it's like, you just have to be flexible.
True.
Because and you have to kind of like manage your expectations. I think for Americans, the wedding is supposed to be like the most amazing day of your life. It's supposed to be the most wonderful day of your life. And like a lot of people say that on social media after their weddings, like, oh, that's the most amazing day of my life. And like it's very much focused on the couple, but especially the woman. Like as a woman, you've been dreaming about this day since you were a little girl. And so there's a lot of very high expectations.
And pressure.
Yeah. As opposed to like, I feel like Chinese weddings, it's more about the parents and the family hosting the guests. So it was more like, more about hospitality, as opposed to fulfilling the dreams of a little girl kind of focus. So, but I think weddings are just actually in reality stressful in general, no matter if you have two cultures involved or not. And so I feel like I was kind of sold a cultural lie in that respect, but also like you just have to be flexible. You just have to roll with it. So
and
there was
enjoy
like,
your day.
And you have to just enjoy. So there was like a lot of small things that went wrong that was really frustrating at the time, but then you're just like, we got married, and there are also many wonderful things that happened that day and that week. So you just have to be flexible and be like, we got married, that's the most important thing.
Thank God it's over. We were so lucky that our wedding was during COVID, but even that one had some stress.
Of course.
So I can imagine if COVID wasn't in play.
And you had more technology involved, right? Because you had the live,
like the Zoom. But then if we had to travel home, we would have had to have maybe 3 weddings. China, Ghana and Zambia. That was not going to work.
At least we only had 2 countries involved.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and we just had like a few months in between. Yeah, a few months in between, maybe 3 or 4 months, I think. Yeah, it was early October and then early February.
God saved us. I know COVID was bad. Some people died and everything. May their souls rest in peace, but COVID saved my wedding.
There were certain benefits.
Thank you for COVID.
There were certain benefits.
Okay, Shane, how did you like your weddings?
Oh, I can't remember. It's very stressful. Very stressful.
Okay, what was the most, maybe just one moment that you really enjoyed? Like, was it the food or the music?
We had a lot of fun dancing. I remember that.
Yeah, my mom was surprised. Like, when did you learn dance?
Yeah, because Chinese weddings, they don't usually have dancing.
Oh.
But because we were doing a more American style, we had like a dance area. And so after dinner, a lot of people had a lot of fun dancing and we had a lot of fun. I think also because it was the end. So it's like everything that, like all the super important things had already happened and there was nothing else on the schedule, there's nothing else to do, you could just relax. And so I think that also,
That's great, that's great. Okay, so next question. Did you ever imagine marrying someone from another country or culture?
I'm not sure, but when I was in middle school, there were like students from other countries. I just feel like, oh yeah, That's very different. Yeah, that's it. But I didn't think about, I will marry a foreigner in the future.
Because you never dated a
I
foreigner.
never date.
Really? She was your first girlfriend?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's so sweet.
I'm too busy studying like good Chinese student. Yeah. But yeah. So you hadn't dated a foreigner before, and you hadn't been outside of your country before. So that was a big thing before we got married, or when we started to get serious before we got married. I was like, you need to visit my country, or at least leave your home country once, because you need to understand a little bit, because this will be our lifestyle, right? If we get married. So actually he visited my family in my country when we were still dating, not even engaged yet. But I'm really glad we did that before everything was official. I think it was really helpful for us to know each other, and for you to understand me more and my country more. So
yeah, that's nice. That was good. So how about you? Did you imagine marrying someone from another country or culture? Really?
Oh yes, because I was already living in China for a bit, and I already had a dream and a passion and a heart to go abroad.
Yeah.
I had already been living abroad for more than a year when we met, and I was like, oh, it's possible that I will be here for a long time. I don't know if or when I will ever leave, or whether I would return to my country to live long term. So for me, it was very much an open door, like, oh sure, maybe I will meet someone I'll meet someone from a different country.
That's nice.
Highly likely.
That was nice. So you don't plan to go back and settle in the States?
Not right now.
Okay. Shane, would you be okay with settling in the States?
Not now.
Not now.
No.
Okay.
Not now. We bought a house in China.
Okay.
Our daughter is starting kindergarten in China.
Oh.
So a lot of things in our life right now are going well here. But who knows, maybe someday. Yeah. But right now, this is where the Lord has us. So
open to possibilities.
yes.
That's great. Okay, so our next question. Now
Oh,
you
no.
bring out the juice.
Oh no.
How have you handled conflicts in marriage?
Do you want the honest answer?
Yes.
Should I answer first, or you want to answer?
You can.
Okay. I think often I will over communicate in trying to solve a conflict. So I will talk, explain, deep dive analysis. And Shane's personality is the opposite of that. So his personality is okay, and just accept and move on. Yeah. So I do not recommend this method. Let me put a disclaimer. I do not recommend this as a good method for solving conflicts. But I think that's our personality, maybe also influenced by our culture as well, and our experiences with our families. That's just how we both naturally deal with things. And I think sometimes I can learn from him to let it go, and it's okay, and move forward. But I think also sometimes I want him to meet me and be like, no, we need to have this lengthy discussion about this and deal with this and talk about our feelings. Yeah, so I think that's something that you're always working on and always figuring out as a couple. I think also there's what's helpful as well is thinking about different styles of conflict resolution. How you can avoid, you can compromise, you can collaborate, you can concede, so one person wins essentially. So there's all different ways of solving conflicts, and probably in different situations you might use some of them or all of them. But it's better to try to compromise and collaborate more, right, than avoiding or one person winning. Right? So I think those are the goal most of the time. when we
Shame.
can't make it.
Yeah, not a good example. So a lot of times I think it's not a big problem,
Yeah.
and don't want to argue about that. Just want to let it go. And sometimes I was just listening, and I just don't know what to say. I have no idea what to say.
Yeah.
And and I was trying to like solve the problem, but eventually she wants me to comfort her.
Yeah.
It's like, so.
Yeah, I think that's a good point actually. Very often what the conflict is about is not what actually the conflict is about. Like maybe we're having an argument about something that happened, like, oh, you said you do this and you didn't, or I asked you to do this and you didn't. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is like I feel hurt because I don't feel like you listened to me, or I feel hurt because you did this thing flippantly and that really hurt my feelings when I felt undermined by that. So usually there's a deeper emotional reason underneath the conflict. Like you're not actually arguing about the plates and forks in the sink or whatever it is. You know, you're arguing about I feel disrespected, I feel hurt, or I feel stressed out because of this situation, but probably because of 5 other situations I had that day. That's why I'm actually stressed out, and it's just coming out because of this little thing. And so like recognizing that can be very helpful. Like we're not arguing about this, we're actually, you know, trying to understand each other and how we feel and what we're dealing with. And like maybe you didn't know I was really stressed out about these things until this little thing set me off, and now we can have a discussion about it. Yeah.
That's powerful. That's powerful. I hope we're learning. Okay, so our next question is, how have you been able to blend each other's cultures, especially now that you have a toddler? They have a beautiful baby. Her name is Reina. Oh my goodness. She's such an angel. And the angel is sleeping right now, but you would have seen her moving around.
Yeah, she's becoming an angel with strong opinions at the age of 2. Yeah. So how do we blend each other's cultures?
Yes.
Yeah.
Blend each other's cultures.
Do you understand? Like how do we take Chinese culture and American culture and mix them in our life?
And also now that you have a child, how are you developing maybe your own culture together as a family? Yes.
Yeah. Can you think of any examples?
I didn't think about that deeply. I was just giving her Chinese food. And her getting used to Chinese food.
Yeah, I think there's some like basic things. Yeah, like, you know, we eat Chinese food and we eat American food or Western food in as a couple, but also with her. So like I cook American food like I would cook, you know, back home. But we also eat Chinese food.
Do you cook Chinese food?
No.
Okay.
And then she does
A lot of people think, oh, your husband's Chinese, you must cook Chinese food. I was like, why would I do that when he's here? And also we live here, right? So it's very easy to get really good Chinese food. Why should I make bad Chinese food?
You can
when
make
we
it
can eat
better.
good Chinese food. But yeah, maybe I think if we lived in the US and it was harder to get Chinese food, then I would be more interested and passionate to like make good Chinese food.
So
but
because
here it's
of
like
the convenience.
Yeah, no way. Yeah. But we eat Chinese food, we eat American food. We're raising her bilingually, so like she uses Chinese with her, I use English with her.
Okay.
Like right now she's starting in a Chinese kindergarten, so that will be an all Chinese environment and obviously a big immersion into Chinese culture for her.
Yeah.
But we're also thinking about later on if she goes to international school, that would be an English environment and a more Western style education environment. So there's many different ways you can combine your cultures, but I think a lot of that happens like organically and naturally in an intercultural relationship, right? Because you're not always thinking about, oh, this is his culture and this is my culture. Usually you're just thinking about how can we figure this out?
Yeah.
Like, how is our life going to look like? How's our relationship going to look like? And trying to navigate that. And your cultures naturally play into that. Because maybe there's some things about Chinese culture that aren't so important to him.
Yeah.
So we don't really focus on those.
Okay.
All right, but other parts are. And so we can try to include them more. But I also think about this question, like every intercultural couple is different. Like we use English, the majority in our relationship, right? But we know other couples where they use Chinese, you know? Or like we might, you know, like decorate the home more American style because I like decorating the house, right?
As you can see.
Oh yeah. But because that's something I enjoy and I like. But like maybe in another couple, like their house just looks like a Chinese house, or they live with their in-laws and we don't live with his parents, right? But it's like every intercultural couple, you like there's no one way to do it. It's not like, oh, all American and Chinese couples will do this. Probably not. Like probably they will find their own combination, their own way of doing it. And so it's really like navigating and figuring it out as you go with that person.
So I heard you mention that some couples use Chinese as their main language of communication. How's your spoken Chinese?
So. This is the thing, is when we met and were dating, he spoke some English, I spoke some Chinese, right? But there was a difference because my Chinese was, I've never formally studied. I just moved here and I learned what I needed to survive. As opposed to him who studied English in school for many, many years and now had an opportunity to use that knowledge in a real life application. So because his English was higher than my Chinese at the time, it was just easier to move forward in English, right? And then I'm an English teacher, so
You taught him.
Yes. So it was very natural and very easy for me to be like, oh, how can I, you know, speak in a way he can understand? How can we communicate? I do remember, going back to the parents question, I do remember one of my parents just being like, how do you communicate? That was being like the main concern of just like, oh, if his English isn't very good and your Chinese isn't very good. But actually, like, I was used to speaking to my students. So for me, it wasn't like too difficult to comprehend. And he learned very quickly. Yeah, because he had that basis already. And that history already from school. And then it was just building up, mostly your oral English, I think. And then once you have someone who's bilingual in your life, living with you in marriage, you don't need
to learn more Chinese, right?
Yeah, actually my Chinese got worse
Yeah.
since we've been together, which I think people are always shocked by that because they always think, oh, your Chinese must be really good. I'm like, no, like I think we've met many intercultural couples during our time as an intercultural couple ourselves. I can only think of maybe one where both people were fluent in each other's languages. Or, you know, because most couples, you're using one of your languages is the dominant one, and then there's a lesser one. Or you're using a third language, right? That that you both learned as a second language, but you have it in common. So in my experience, like that's kind of like a faulty assumption. But it's the goal. Of course it's the goal. But I think the reality of practical life and trying to have a healthy relationship is the most important thing. Which language which language that relationship happens in is a secondary concern to trying to make it work in your relationship.
That's lovely.
Do you have anything you want to say about my bad Chinese?
Now you can learn Chinese to our daughter.
That's true. I have a 2-year-old level of Chinese. I can understand what my daughter says.
At least a win is a win.
Yeah.
Oh, my Chinese is also horrible. I think when I first came to China, I was interested in learning Chinese. I think that was 2014. I was interested in learning Chinese, and then my Chinese teacher got changed. And then the new teacher they brought in was just horrible, and my interest in Chinese died.
Having a good teacher really influences you. Yeah, because I've had many tutors in Chinese, and some have been wonderful and really helped me, and some
not so
less
much.
so. But yeah, it's hard when your tutors or teachers are constantly changing, and it's hard when some of them are not, the right style though you can learn.
So now my Chinese is worse, and because more Chinese people are speaking English, and when they talk to you, they don't want to speak Chinese.
Yeah.
They'll speak English the whole time. So you just say, okay, let's speak English.
And my work, because I'm teaching English in my job, they do not want me to speak any Chinese at all in my job, right? So the only time I was using it was just for like shopping, traveling, those daily life things. And I can still do those.
Of course. We just need to shop and travel. We don't need anything else. So that's the Chinese I know. And it's enough for me.
I'm not proud of it. I do want to learn, and I would like to learn, but I also trying to give myself a little grace, because it's like, we've had other things in our life going on, like we got married and I did a master's degree and I've been working and we had a baby, there's been other things as well that I haven't been able to just stop my life and study full time.
I don't think I want to learn any more Chinese. I have my HSK3 certificate.
That's awesome.
I got good grades, so
that's good.
I'm done.
You should be proud.
I am. I didn't think I'll pass it though, because I failed the mock exam.
Oh no.
So I thought I was going to fail the exam, and then the results came. I checked online.
Yeah.
I saw the score. I refreshed it because I thought it was the wrong thing.
It's a mistake.
I looked at it. I was like, what? I actually passed this thing?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So at least I have something.
You have something to show for it.
Yes.
And learning a language is not a yes or no. Like people ask you, like, do you speak this language? And you're supposed to answer yes or no, but it's actually not a yes or no answer. It's a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So at what level do you say yes? Well, that depends on who you're asking, right? So some people would look at your level and say, yes, you speak Chinese. And some people would look at your level and say, no, you're not fluent.
Exactly.
So I think, I have a lot of opinions about this topic.
When you say hello to Chinese, they will say, oh, you speak good Chinese.
Yes, all the time. I got into a Didi one time. Didi is Chinese Uber. So I got into this Didi, but before I got in, the driver called me. And I told him I'm on my way like 1 minute. So I sat at the back, and then 5 minutes later, he looks behind, he says, Nishin, why Warren? Like, oh yeah, you're
He didn't notice until so late.
He's like, oh, so you're a foreigner? I'm like, what? I said yes. He said, I didn't realize it. So I looked at this man, I'm like, I've been sitting here for 5 minutes and you didn't realize anything.
This is how you know people are addicted to their phones.
Yeah.
Because if it was like a pre-DD, like if it was, back when we all had to use normal taxis and cash, which you said you came in 2014.
Yeah, 2014, yeah.
So you remember how it was before. Before you just called with an app and before, you paid with your phone.
Yeah.
When you had to actually communicate with people you met. Yeah, it was different. But I think nowadays they just look at the phone, you get in the car, and you drive, and you don't talk, and so it's very different nowadays.
Very different.
He was probably looking at his phone and driving the car the whole time and didn't think to look at the person.
It was so funny. He kept looking at me.
He's like, was that how she looked when she got in? Did she change in the last 5 minutes?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so
anyways.
Our next question. What's one of the greatest lessons that your spouse has taught you? What's the greatest lesson you've learned from Katie? And Katie, what's the greatest lesson you've learned from Shane?
This is a deep question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to answer first, or do you have?
You can.
Okay, I'm still thinking too.
Okay.
I think it's hard to choose just one big one, because I feel like I've learned a lot from him and through him about his culture, about his people, and about this country that I would have never learned if I hadn't met him or had a relationship with him. Many small things that broadened my understanding and helped me just see things in a different light. And of course, broadening your understanding also hopefully makes you more compassionate and more empathetic towards others. So I think that's, as a general lesson, is one of the most wonderful things you gain from being in an intercultural relationship in general. But I think also our personality differences, which we've already talked a bit about, has been helpful, because even though it can create tension and it can contribute to conflict, it also is quite balancing. That we have quite different personalities, but they balance each other. So I might be more anxious or more detailed, and he might be more relaxed or nonchalant, but we can balance each other in that way. And so I can learn from him to how to relax and let go and some things.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good job, Shane. You can go ahead.
About lesson. Something I remember pretty clearly was when we were traveling together, and I think it was in Shanghai. And we were walking on the street at night, and there were a couple of boyfriend and girlfriend fighting. For most Chinese, like, oh, it's a family issue. It's not our business. We just walk by. But she insists to call the police.
Yeah, I remember that. It was violent. It was a violent fight. It was not like they were just arguing. Like, it was a violent fight in public on the street.
And then was drunk, kind of drunk. Anyway. So it's very different culture, and I think what she did is right.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Good job. Good job.
Safety.
Good job, Katie. Good job, both of you. So finally, our last question.
Oh, okay.
How do you feel? We're on the last question. How do you feel?
I feel like we've talked a lot, and hopefully some of it made sense.
It did. It all made sense. Our final question. What lesson? Oh, sorry, not lesson. What advice would you give to other intercultural couples?
I think, should I talk first?
Yes.
Yeah, if you're ready, go ahead.
I think respect her, love each other, because like for us, she traveled all the way from other country and far away from her family, and I should take her responsible to like take care of her and love her, since she's doing this big sacrifice.
Yeah.
But the sacrifice I chose and that I wanted. Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's very important to respect, because so many different, there are so many differences in different cultures as well.
Yeah, respect one another.
Yeah.
Wow. Respect and love one another.
That's a good sum up. Yeah. I think I would say, if for like maybe a dating intercultural couple or a new intercultural couple, I would say to look for maturity in your partner, and also work on developing your own maturity. Because I think that is the most important thing. Right? Like, you might have a lot of cultural differences, you might have a lot of personality differences, you might have, 100 things that might cause you to work or not work. So what's going to cause you to have longevity and be able to make it is usually comes down to a form of maturity. So for example, often if we talk to some single people or dating people, it's like, oh, what's important to you when you're looking at a partner? And they're like, oh, I want someone who's this height, or I want someone who has this much money, or I want someone who looks like this. And I'm like, oh, that's fine, like if that's what, you know, whatever you're attracted to, but you know, what does that person do when they're angry? What does that person do when they're stressed? How do they treat you when they disagree with you? Right? Do they still respect you and love you even if you disagree? Right? Or, you know, are they able to ask for help when they need help? Or do they just turn off and, you know? So like a lot of those kinds of things, or like, are they willing to grow? Are they willing to change? Or are they stagnant in their faith or as a person? Right? So a lot of those kinds of deeper issues come down to maturity, right? And so that would be the number one thing, where you want to grow in maturity yourself, and you also want to look for someone else who's also growing in maturity. And you can find that person in your mature or immature person in your own culture or in a different culture, right? Just because they're from a different culture doesn't necessarily mean they're immature or that they're mature. Right? So some people might be like, oh, I really like Chinese guys, or oh, I really like this kind of person, but it's like, actually there's mature and immature people in that culture, right? And in our own cultures. So for me, the cultural differences aren't the deal breakers, or aren't, you know, yeah, you need to navigate through them, but there's a lot of rewards for that, if you can make it and if you have the maturity to make it. So for me, like my parents were from the same country, from the same state, from, you know, same skin color, same ethnic background. Like they had so many similarities, but they still ended up in a divorce. So for me, those things were not so important, right? So I think the respect and the love and the maturity and how you can treat each other and overcoming those challenges is the more important thing.
Wow, so thank you so much, Katie and Shane. That's Mr. and Mrs. Who, right? Thank you so much for being with us on this segment today. I hope each and every one of us has learned something and has developed a new perspective on relationships. And I hope we've been blessed and will continue to be blessed. So thank you so much, and God bless you.
Yeah, God bless you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.